Okay, I said in the last video, mimetic desire, the very thing that makes us human, is also the very thing that leads to conflict and eventually violence. And because we're so mimetic, that is imitative, human communities for Girard are fated to violence. Why? Well, anytime I desire something, like I said, it's always mediated through another person. I learn my desire for an object through another person who becomes the model of that desire. I imitate their desire of the object. Okay, but eventually, you have two people now desiring an object, whereas you just had one first. I look at that person, I see them liking that thing. All of a sudden, the model for that desire, presuming that, or the model for that object of desire, presuming it's finite and materialistic or physical, then it's limited, right? And now all of a sudden, the model to that desire and for that desire becomes an obstacle. So Girard sometimes uses the term model obstacle. The very person or the very thing that I learned my desire from becomes a stumbling block, or gets in the way of my desire. I think, for example, of a relationship, the triangle, love triangle, where you start liking someone because you see someone else liking them, and all of a sudden now there's two people in competition for that object. That's the thing. Mimetic desire breeds competition. People start competing for the things, and competition breeds conflict. So mimetic desire, ipso facto, necessarily leads to conflict, because it engenders competition. Because there's only one of these objects. Let's say two people are fighting over a certain person. They've learned to and this is the thing. The other person starts imitating the other person's desire. So mimetic desire necessarily leads to conflict. And you see it in a lover's quarrel. You see this in Shakespeare. Girard wrote a book on Shakespeare. People will learn, they'll start falling in love with the same person, and then all of a sudden their desire is copying one another, imitating one another. Next thing you know, they're in competition. Next thing you know, they're in conflict. Next thing you know, they're killing each other over something. Okay? This is how it works. Whether it be people, natural resources, whatever, human beings learn to desire things from each other, then they get into conflict and competition with each other from it. Okay? And so mimetic desire is the very cause of violence for Girard. It leads necessarily to competition, where the other person gets it. I learn the desire from the other person, but the other person then gets in the way for me getting to that thing that I've learned from them. And so mimetic desire fates human communities to violence. And Girard thinks then that since human beings are fated to violence by their very mimetic nature, their imitative nature, religion comes in as a way to act as a kind of cathartic mechanism to let off the steam that the competition and the conflict that mimetic desire brought about. Lets that steam off. It's a kind of release valve, religion, that controls violence. Okay, and we'll talk more about that in the next video.